Hello and welcome to Big Baseball and Beyond, a D1 baseball podcast. I'm Patrick Ebert and he's Burke Granger. We're going to take you through this podcast. Today's focus is going to be on last week's Major League Baseball draft. Burke and I have long been fans of the draft. It's the reason we both got into doing what we're doing today, covering college baseball. But before we get into that, I want to thank our friends at Academy Sports. They're the ones that make these podcasts possible. I just want to point out Academy Sports, and outdoors, your one-stop shop for all things sports, outdoor equipment, all those things with back-to-school specials currently going on. Visit them at academy.com. I actually just looked at their website now, having a couple of boys a month away from going back to school and just need for shoes and clothes and other things. Burke, I know you're in the same boat. So
yes.
If you have the time, give our friends at Academy your support. So, Burke, happy summer. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and I've talked to you, so I can't say I miss you, but I missed you giving introductions on podcasts. It comes so naturally to you, and I'm envious, Patrick, of your gift of gab. But happy summer to you as well, sir.
I got nothing on the Runes, so
no. All Runes is he's like I said, he's the point guard of podcasting. He's a goat.
Yep.
So
Yep. I think we bring up Runes regularly on this podcast just to make sure that he's still listening. So
it's Runes, a Mike Rooney fan podcast. Yeah.
Please come and host us and show us rookies how it's done. So Burke, just talking summer. I mean, we're a month plus removed from the College World Series. Obviously LSU won the national championship. We don't cover that part of the game. We got guys like Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers, Joe Healy, Bradley Smart, and so many others on the D1 baseball team that cover the College World Series. So our roles, once the summer hit, quickly change. And I've been covering the Northwoods League. You've been laying low, doing some things behind the scenes and taking care of things. So I just got to ask you, what have you been doing with yourself?
I've been doing a lot of camping. You're right. I give the old radar gun a little bit of a break. Let it cool down a little bit once the summer starts. So I've just been doing a lot of camping with the family, following Major League Baseball, getting caught up there.
Go Brewers.
And just kind of enjoying. Yeah, go Brewers. I'm a suffering White Sox fan. So I knew it was bad, and then now I got a chance to see it, and indeed it is bad. So, but any baseball is better than no baseball. So that's how I'm feeling my summer. How about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I have been covering the Northwoods League, so I've been watching baseballs at the All-Star game last week. I have been attending Brewer games. Haven't been doing the camping as much. Hopefully this weekend I'm able to do that. But I need to catch up a little bit on life and all those great things. I think that summer respite helps provide that. And then, back to school, back to work, and D1 baseball, we start thinking about fall reports and thinking about next year. And that's coming up really fast. So got a month more of this.
It wouldn't be a Big Baseball and Beyond podcast if I didn't take a moment to complain about the weather. It was a staple for many of our spring podcasts about complaining about the long spring and the long winter, essentially, and the frigid conditions that we had to cover the game in. And now I'm just like, careful what you wish for, because it's so damn hot and I'm miserable. I enjoy summer. It's definitely one of my top 4 seasons of the year, but the heat can really get to me. So I just wanted to complain and keep this streak alive going of me complaining about the weather on this podcast.
Yeah. I don't want to go back to complaining about March weather. So, I make it a point not to complain summer, and it's been beautiful. I love it warm. I was born to wear t-shirt and shorts. So that's what I'm going to do. And right now it's a gorgeous day, but tomorrow it's supposed to be back into the 90s and humid, and I'm a big fan of windows open, could let the fresh air in. But when it gets, above mid to upper 80s, that's when you got to close it down and turn on the air and have a more comfortable existence. So I hear you.
You don't close the windows until it's mid to upper 80s?
That is correct. Yes. Most people think my wife and I are nuts. So.
Oh my God, you are nuts.
Yep.
Yeah, you should be tarred, feathered, and run out of town with that take. But
No
let's
way. We're going to deal with these winters. Like, this is amazing. Like, I'm so comfortable right now. I have windows right
mid
here,
80s.
wide open. And it's probably 82 degrees outside right now, and I love it. So
you're a psychopath. But let's talk baseball. It's something we might agree on.
Left-handed reliever coming at you. Yes, let's talk baseball. Enough of the summer. Enough of the non-baseball related talk. Let's get to it. Let's talk about the 2025 Major League Baseball draft, Burke. We're going to focus specifically on the Midwest, even more specifically on the Big Ten. Burke, before leading into this, I provided you a link to the Big Ten's release about they had 39 players selected in a draft, either that went to Big Ten schools or that were committed to Big Ten schools. I've since found a lot of omissions. So I know that the number 39 is not accurate. There are a lot of other recruits to schools that weren't listed. I'm not going to tell you who they are. It's not important. But I am going to just run down the guys that were selected on the first day of the draft. So the first day of the draft this year was rounds 1, 2, and 3, and all those compensation rounds. They used to be called supplemental draft picks or compensatory draft. I have no clue what they're called anymore, and I don't even care. I stopped caring several years ago because it's too hard to figure out. Anyway,
I'll leave that up to Seif to comprehend and explain, because I don't understand it.
Exactly. The Big Ten players taken in the top 3 rounds. First guy taken, Mitch Voit, University of Michigan, second baseman. Didn't pitch this year due to injury, but the Mets did announce him as a two-way player as the 38th overall pick. Great pick. Devin Taylor, outfielder for the Indiana Hoosiers. Oakland A's took him with the 48th pick. Joseph Jerwa, left-handed pitcher. Baltimore Orioles picked him up. I believe the first pitcher the Orioles have taken like in the top 3 rounds in several years or something like that.
In the Mike Elias era, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that was an interesting selection. Cade Obermiller, another left-handed pitcher from Iowa. The Phillies grabbed him with the 63rd pick. Ethan Hedges, third baseman, also closed for USC. Rockies grabbed him with the 77th pick. And then Trevor Cohen, an outfielder with Rutgers. He was the San Francisco Giants' 85th overall pick. So those were your day 1 selections from the Big Ten. Burke and I are going to talk about 3 Big Ten picks, not necessarily in the top 3 rounds, that we like the most, whether it was relative value for where they're selected or just how much we like them. I'm going to let Burke kick us off here. Burke, 3 guys, Big Ten players that really stood out to you.
Yeah, so the first one is Mitch Voit, and we've talked a lot about him a lot on this podcast over the spring. But when you're the first guy taken in the Big Ten, you're going to get a little additional more press from us. So, yeah, 38th pick overall, like you said, announced as a two-way player, which was really exciting for me. As you know, Patrick, and I'm sure our listening audience mostly knows, Mitch Voit was a two-way All-American as a freshman. Freshman All-American as the Wolverines' third baseman and closer. His sophomore year, he was their Sunday starter and also played right field and first base. This year, had arm surgery, didn't pitch, just played second base, but was phenomenal. Just an extra base machine. He recently did sign for $1.75 million, which is about $750,000 under slot. So I was surprised to see him be the first player in the Big Ten picked over Devin Taylor, who went 10 picks later. But Devin Taylor's slot recommendation is $2 million. I'd be surprised if he doesn't sign for more than what Mitch Voit signed for. So mostly I'm just interested to see how Mitch will be deployed with the Mets since they announced him as a two-way player. But overall, he's just been one of my favorite players to cover over the last 3 years. So it was cool to see him come off the board that early on day 1.
And you always saw him good. Like you saw Mitch Voit at his best all the time.
That guy hit 750 in college for me. And it's not a small sample. I always was up there to see them in the fall and then catch at least one series in the spring. And he was just always on the barrel. And when guys do that consistently, you tend to fall in love with them. And that's what I did with Mitch. So
the Mets area scout was probably with you at each one of those games, which is why he probably, promoted them to select him that high. So,
yeah, I would imagine. I did see him there. But I see a lot of the scouts there and a lot of guys saw him good. And every scout I talked to in the region was high on him. I think we had him criminally low on our preseason MLB draft prospects list for the conference, and that's on me. So accountability is a core value at Big Baseball and Beyond, and I'll wear that one.
Way to go.
I overcompensated because he wasn't pitching, and some scouts had told me they liked him better as a pitcher. And hey, they might have, since he was drafted as a two-way guy, but
and a Wisconsin native too. So way to go.
Yes. Enough of my mistakes. Let's move on to people I liked. Jason Reitz or Reitz. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, from the 6'11" beanpole from the Oregon Ducks. He got picked in the 4th round by the Twins. When I saw him, it was out of the pen, and the fastball got up into the high 90s. When he starts, it sits more in the low 90s, and he's 6'11", and if you go look at some video of him, he comes way over the top at 6'11". And Patrick, you and I have been in this game for a long time. That used to be heralded as a good thing when a guy worked downhill from a slot. With the data and analytics revolution, we've learned like that's not very conducive to missing bats, and he doesn't miss a lot of bats with his fastball. So I do wonder if they'll try to tinker with that release point, because the slider and changeup are really, they're his out pitches. He has good feel for the changeup. He throws a lot of strikes with that pitch, and then the slider is one that he could put hitters away with. But you need to miss some bats with a fastball. I've talked about that on this podcast to be successful in the professional level. So I do imagine they're going to take him like an unmolded piece of clay and try to work with that a little bit. Again, I don't have any inside knowledge, but just that's what I'm seeing a lot more of in the analytic departments, is people trying to utilize a lower release point as it's more conducive to getting swings and misses. The third pick that I really liked out of the Big Ten is Kyle McCoy. The Reds got him in the 8th. He was a Big Ten he might have been all Big Ten or second team, or I know he was at least on the Big Ten all freshman team in 23. Last year he missed the season recovering from Tommy John. He's a 6'6" lefty, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. He has some funk and deception working from a little bit of a lower slot. I saw him really good against Indiana, a good hitting team this spring. McCoy went 6-3 with a 3.32 ERA on a disappointing Maryland team that had an inflated ERA. So it's kind of impressive what he did on that underperforming team. The slider is not going to blow you away with a spin rate. Like the spin rate was in the 1900s, which is pretty low amongst sliders, but it tunnels really well with the fastball, and he gets a lot of chase with that pitch. The slider got a 34.5% chase rate, which is in the 89th percentile. So, and he also has good feel for the changeup and is able to land that for strikes. So those are my 3, Patrick. We got 3 pitchers, but one's a two-way guy. And of course they're all college guys that I liked. What about you?
I remember with McCoy too, there were a couple of times we talked this spring, and that like it felt like because Maryland didn't have much of a bullpen, McCoy went an extra inning more than one occasion, and it felt like, not surprisingly, when you face an order like a third time or maybe even a fourth, like that's when he got burned. So it felt like that ERA might have even been below 3 had, he stayed in a more, I guess, quote unquote,
Agreed.
normal pitch count, with normal bullpen usage. But Maryland, I think, felt like they needed to lean on him a little heavier than what probably most teams would do with their ace. So, but yeah, my 3 guys are all hitters. They're all outfielders. I don't think I actually filled this in, so you probably don't know who I'm going to say. I'm going to start with the Reds' 4th round pick in Mason DeVille, or Neville, again, another name that I don't know how to pronounce, but physical outfielder. I think he hit 16 home runs last year, his first year at Oregon, started his career at Arkansas, tied for the nation's lead in home runs this year. The swing and miss is a concern. He strikes out a lot. That's the reason, if I had to guess, that he fell to the 4th round. But this guy has all the tools to succeed. He was a big prospect coming out of high school, and I think the Reds get a really exciting, toolsy player with their 4th round pick, with physicality, with power, all those different things. Left-handed hitter, just an impressive athlete. My second guy, Paxton Kling, 7th round pick of the Rangers, went to Penn State, was actually began his career at LSU. Penn State got him out of the portal. He was a Pennsylvania native, so he came back home, played for the Nittany Lions. Burke, I know you and I agree on this one. And, Kling, if you saw him play, even if he wasn't getting base hits, he was finding ways to get on base. He always worked the count. He would draw walks. When he got on, he'd steal bases. He covered a ton of ground in center field, had a great arm, and he has power. So, the hit tool has been a little slower to develop for him, although he still hit well with Penn State. And I think this is a guy that could just be on, basically kind of a late bloomer, because I remember seeing him the summer between his freshman year or his high school senior season and freshman year at LSU. I was actually down in the prospect league watching Noah Schultz, who turned out to be a first-round pick that year, now in the White Sox system. And Kling was at that same game. And Kling was long, gangly, just not developed. But you could see the athleticism. You could see the bat speed. He's a more physical player now, but clearly that hit tool is the last part of his development to catch up with all of his other tools, which are quite exciting. My last guy is Devin Taylor. And you and I both, and I know Seif was surprised too, and other people, that he fell to the 48th pick, right? And I remember they said this on the draft broadcast, about how Taylor playing in the Big Ten may not have seen the same velocity that some other proven college players had. I don't really buy that. He went to the Cape and he succeeded well there. He had a stint with Team USA and he succeeded well there too. And every time I saw him play, at the Big Ten tournament or wherever else, it didn't really matter the level of pitcher that he was facing. He always had success. And I know he's another guy that you saw really good too. So I know part of a blemish on his profile is he's a left fielder, maybe a first baseman, maybe a DH. So his positional versatility is certainly limited. But when I look at the Oakland A's making that pick with the 48th selection, they got Jacob Wilson, and they got Nick Kurtz at first base, and they have one other guy that I was thinking of. What's his name? Anyway, they have all these college guys that they've drafted over the years, in recent years, and they fast-tracked to the bigs. And Devin Taylor, even if he is a left fielder, that's not going to slow him down. His bat's going to get to the big leagues as quick as it can get him there. He's patient. He got better every year. He got better every spring as the spring progressed. Basically, he finished better than he started each and every year. And that goes for his entire career. And I think that's just a fantastic pick.
I love all three of those picks, Patrick, and I got comments on all of them. So Devin Taylor, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the draft preview podcast that Seif and Fit and Chris Burke was on there, and Runes of course was running it. Chris Burke talked about Devin Taylor, and I loved the breakdown because he was comparing him against his peers in the draft class. When you're talking about, all right, here's the top 5 college hitters, and what Burke said is, if this is a blind look at just the stats, Devin Taylor would be the first overall pick because you're looking at how often he's on the barrel, what his swing decisions are, average exit velocity, and Taylor beats his peers within that class when you're looking at those attributes. Take it also into account, he's been as consistent as anyone in the draft in terms of his performance from the day he stepped onto campus until the day he left. All the guy has ever done is hit. Is Big Ten pitching on average as good as ACC and SEC pitching? No. But Devin Taylor everyone was out to get Devin Taylor. And yes, he had protection in that lineup. But to your point, he's hit everywhere he's gone, including the Cape and Team USA. The guy, I think, will hit. And the fact that it's left field only, potentially, again, another point that Berkey made is compare him to Ike Irish, who also might be left field only or right field only in his case, because he's got a cannon for an arm. But Ike Irish is a guy who was primarily a catcher, got converted to the outfield. The bat is really special. But Taylor's bat is special too. So if you're talking about, hey, he might be limited to a corner, that didn't stop Ike Irish from being picked in the first round, and I don't think it should have stopped Devin Taylor from being picked in the first round. Paxton Kling, I'm with you. Like that dude played a lot on that 2023 national championship team for LSU. Struggled as a sophomore, but the talent was evident at Penn State. Like that was my first look, obviously, when he was at Penn State, and he is just, in terms of raw talent, one of the most talented players in the Big Ten. And that was just something you could see with the eye test. And that, like you said, the hit tool might have some question marks, but there's speed, there's power, and he played a pretty good center field. Mason, and he spells it just like Aaron Neville, but in the broadcaster were pronouncing it Neville. Now, I'll spare you my Aaron Neville impersonation, but if you get enough beers in me, Patrick, at ABCA next winter, I'll likely break it out. It's something I'm known to do at parties. So, but he you're right. The swing and miss was the bugaboo with him, and it showed up a lot in the last couple of weeks of the season. He was tied for the national lead with 26 home runs, but I don't think he hit one in the last 3 weeks. So he allowed someone to catch up to him because he struggled a little bit down the stretch, and I think that's what kept him from being picked earlier. I think he was the 120th pick or somewhere around there. But yeah, he's also a big fan of him and what he can do on both sides of the ball.
Burke, I want to just go back to Devin Taylor quick. I don't know if you remember this spring, I posed a question to you, identifying Devin Taylor as a Kyle Schwarber type reach in the first round. And I went as aggressively as saying, would you pick him with the first overall pick? And obviously that, even at that time, I noted I was being aggressive. It would have been a very huge, underslot type of pick. But I loved the Kyle Schwarber pick when it happened. However many years ago that was now, probably 10, when the Cubs took him 4th overall, signed him to a big underslot deal. He didn't take long in the minors, not surprisingly. It was a fast track bat, left-handed hitter, right? That knew the strike zone, had power. He didn't quite perform with the Cubs as well as he is now. Obviously, the recent All-Star game home run challenge, whatever you want to call that he won the home run derby swing off to win that All-Star game. But Schwarber is he's the Phillies leadoff hitter, right? And he's had success at a few other stops too, and just doing a really good job. I think Devin Taylor, also an Indiana product, could be that type of hitter down the road. So enough about the Big Ten guys that we liked. Move on to, where are we on our little thing here? I'm going to move on to the most fortuitous drafts. So Burke and I are each going to pick a team that we think. Oh wait, no, I picked one. We're going to start with the surprise pick. My apologies.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm going to start with this one. Just one player that was a surprise, where they were taken, who they were taken by, whatever. Mason McConaughey, right-handed pitcher of Nebraska, the Texas Rangers' 4th round pick, 115th pick overall. We've seen this in recent years. McConaughey entered the year as a preseason All-American, had a fantastic year a year ago as a sophomore with Nebraska, was really supposed to be the Huskers' ace, was a big reason why we picked them as a ranked team to open the year. I think he had 3 starts, and then his season was shut down. He had Tommy John surgery. Certainly not surprised to see a team pick him early. We've seen this with other guys that have good arms that, still get drafted early. The recovery rate from Tommy John is so much higher than what it used to be, and has been that way for years now. I have no doubt we're going to see Mason McConaughey throwing again. I think I was a little surprised by his profile because he's more of a sinker slider type of guy. He sits in the low 90s, can touch the mid 90s at times, has a good overall repertoire, but he really relies heavily on the fastball and the slider. And to see him go in the 4th round, that was just not on my radar. I'm happy for him. I think Texas is a good team, good program for him to succeed with. They've had some success developing pitchers from the college level in recent years. And I like McConaughey's chances because I saw him during the 2024 spring, right before he got inserted into the weekend rotation, and he looked really good out of the bullpen. And the very next week, he became Nebraska's Saturday starter before entering this year as their Friday ace. So happy for McConaughey. Who do you got, Burke? Who was your surprise pick in the draft?
For me, it was Blaine Wink, the right-hander out of Ohio State. So I'm located in Columbus, so I'm pretty familiar with him. He was a D2 transfer from Findlay. 2024 was his first year on campus at Ohio State, and he was their best reliever for Ohio State. He was their multi-inning guy that they would put in after Landon Beidelsheets on Friday nights, and Beidelsheets was just, I think, a 6-rounder. Who transferred to Arkansas and pitched in the College World Series. Wink's the guy they would put in right after him, and he was really effective in that role. And then he goes to the Cape. He throws really well there. I saw him in the fall. He was pretty good, but kind of they were easing him along in the fall to try to keep his innings in check. And this spring, he just really never got it going. They tried to use him as their Friday guy. He only had a handful of appearances and only one was good. I happened to be at that one that was good, and it was really good. It was against a very good hitting Oregon team. He was up to 95. He struck out like 7 guys in 3 innings and closed the door. And it was the highlight of his season. It was the highlight of Ohio State's season. When I was talking to scouts leading up to this draft, there weren't enough of them who saw him good to have confidence in putting a good number on him. So that I was really getting wishy-washy answers about when he might get picked or if he might get picked. But was happy to see the White Sox, who went high school heavy early. So this may be an underslot deal. I don't think he's signed yet, but and the slot is like 250,000. But gosh, he's shown what he is capable of, and it's dominance at his best. Like it's really good stuff. But he's had 1 year at the D1 level because this year was only a handful of innings. So he's raw. He's definitely raw. But in the 8th round, I really like the value, but was surprised to see him come off the board. Surprised, but also happy for the kid. There were some rumblings this year about how much he wanted it because he wasn't pitching. He wasn't available that much. And those rumblings, I don't know how much validity there was in it. So some of that's not fair to the kid, but it also it makes scouts nervous when they are questioning the heart of a kid. So again, another reason I was surprised to see it, but I was pleasantly surprised to see him getting picked in the top 10.
All right. Good stuff, Burke. Now we're going to move on to the most fortuitous draft. So which Big Ten program you felt had like just a good draft? And a lot of times it's not something they control, right? It's that they have to see how the pieces fall. It has to do with their own players and the recruits, the guys that are showing up on campus. Burke, who stood out? What Big Ten team stood out to you for having a good draft day?
And I'll say this with the caveat, Patrick, that I don't know as much about the high school guys as I used to when you and I used to truly cover all aspects of the draft, including the prep, the summer showcase circuit, as well as the college guys in the spring. But I'm also familiar with the highly touted recruits from each of these schools. And I thought Maryland did a good job to get their top 2 guys to campus. Bud Coombs he's a two sport guy. He's committed to the Terps to play baseball and football. He's a running back. So I assume because of that, it would have come with an over slot price tag, but he was a high profile guy who played in a lot of high profile events over the summer. Big arm, big exit velos. He's an outfielder. So it's good to get him to campus. I don't know if football or baseball is going to be his primary sport there, but it's certainly, I'm sure Coach Swope is happy that he made it. Then Austin Weiss is a pitcher who pitched on the USA Baseball 18U team. He was up to 94 last summer in the showcase circuit. I'd expect him to play a big role on Maryland's pitching staff that finished 15th in the Big Ten and had an ERA of like 6.65. So this is a period of uncertainty for Maryland, who was once dominant not too long ago in this conference. Last year, they were under 500. They missed the Big Ten tournament. On top of that, you lose Kyle McCoy to the draft, which was not a surprise, but maybe it was a surprise to lose Chris Akopian, who goes in the portal. and he quickly commits to Texas A&M. So getting these two guys as prep guys to campus as potential cornerstones in a rebuilding kind of that top end talent you're used to seeing for the Terps is a big win for Maryland.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a good call. Maryland, to be honest with Coach Swope, as you mentioned, ever since Rob Vaughn left, he's definitely got to put his mark on that program. And, they probably needed to rebuild a little bit, and certainly don't want to lose a player like Akopian. That would surprise me given the history of the Akopian family with the Maryland program. But I have no doubt that he's going to rebuild that team. May not see it next spring. May not see it the spring after that, but we're going to see it here in the next 2 to 3 years, I think. The one team that really stood out to me for having just a good draft day is UCLA. And they only had one player drafted, Cody DelVecchio, who was ineligible to play for pretty much the second half of the season. I think he came back and made one postseason appearance or something like that. And this is a team already that was loaded with freshmen and sophomores and a handful of successful juniors. I mean, Rock Chalowski is already the most talked about college athlete right now in the game of college baseball. He should have been the Golden Spikes winner. I think he won Player of the Year I know he did by D1, and I saw a few other publications named as the Player of the Year. I don't even know how he didn't finish as a finalist for the Golden Spikes. That was just a mistake, a flat out mistake. He was the best player in the nation, but they get him back. They get guys like Dean West and Roman Martin and Landon Stump, all sophomores. They'll have another promising class. The highest drafted recruit they had was their top pitcher, Angel Cervantes, was a second-round pick by the Pirates. So you assume he's going to sign if he didn't already. So obviously that's a tough blow. But, again, UCLA is so good at developing arms. Head coach John Savage, it's what he does. Wyland Moss was a freshman last year. I think Easton Hawk, was his name, was one of their, kind of closers. Both these guys, just ridiculous arm talent. UCLA already was, if not the best team in the league, the second best team, and the team that advanced to the College World Series the first time they did that since they won it all in 2013. So, see, Burke, I'm closing my window. It's getting too noisy outside. So yeah, UCLA, there's no reason to expect that they're going to take a step back next year. I'm sure going into the year, we're going to have them as our number one team in the preseason.
Yep.
Without doing any homework, they're going to be ranked in the top 25, all those things. UCLA is going to be good, and they're going to continue to be good when they didn't suffer many blows in the draft. They didn't. So, yeah.
Yeah. I assume if we do a podcast like this next year, we might be talking about them losing, 8 guys in the draft, though. So
that is true.
It's all about sustainability. Getting there is one thing, sustaining it is another. But if there's one coach in the Big Ten, I would expect to do that. It's Coach Savage. So,
yep. And Chalowski, as of the draft was today, he'd go number 1 overall. So,
yes.
On the opposite end, the biggest blow. Who got hit hardest by the draft? I'm going to start with this one. I'm going with Iowa here. Iowa now has been hit hard by the draft 2 years in a row. I think a lot of people thought they would be hurt more when they lost guys like Brody Breck and Marcus Morgan a year ago. They did benefit by getting Cade Obermiller back. But this one, it has some potential. Daniel Wright was their top bullpen arm, and I want to say he went in the 8th round. But I believe Aaron Savory and I can't remember, is it Anthony Watts?
Yep.
I want to see where these two guys went. Watts was a 4th round pick. Savory, I want to say it was 13th rounder by Cleveland. These two guys, it's possible they come back. It's possible at that point in the draft, but most college guys, I think when they're picked at this point in their career, typically do end up signing. I don't know. I haven't looked to see if they've signed or anything like that. So, but still, for Iowa to lose really their top 4, arms the way they did, they're definitely losing Obermiller. That's going to be tough. Iowa already was kind of in a transition period with some young players and talent on their team. I think this kind of speeds up that process where we may see Iowa take a step back if they do indeed lose some of these pitchers. And I think that step back was expected a year ago, and yet they continued to perform at a high level, obviously spending most of the season in first place in the Big Ten before losing that right in the final weekend. I know they were really upset to miss the postseason as a result, even though their RPI, which was like 80, wasn't in that postseason conversation. But, if all these pitchers do end up signing, that's going to be really hard to make up for in a 1-year transition, which is 2 years removed from losing some other big high caliber arms. So that's where I'm at with the biggest blows for the Big Ten. So what do you got, Burke?
Good call. Yeah, that's a very good call. For me, I had Indiana. Obviously they lost Devin Taylor, who was a junior, and Corbin Dickerson was a redshirt sophomore. They, with the season he had, I know they didn't expect to retain him, but when they signed him last year from Louisville, they probably did think they had at least 2 years with him on campus because he played so sparingly at Louisville. He just broke out and was I think a 4th round pick by the Mariners. So, and then they also lost 5th-year guys, Cole Gilly and Ben Grable. I was happy to see both of those guys get drafted. Both were transfers who you and I covered at their previous stops at Indiana State and Northwestern. But they had 2 of their top commits drafted, and I'm sure they expected one, or they hoped one of these guys would make it to campus. So Matthew Fisher is a right-handed pitcher from the Evansville area. He got picked in the 7th round by the Phillies. Slot value there is like right around $250,000. I assume it'll take more than that, but I also assume if you're picked in the first 10 rounds, you're going to sign. There's only 2 or 3 guys that slip through every year. The other guy is Alex Barr, who the Sacramento A's picked in the 12th round. He's up around from your area, Patrick, or at least it's closer to you than it is to me. It's like the Valparaiso area of Indiana. He was a 12th rounder. I assume they're going to try to sign him. And again, Indiana, we've talked about it on this podcast. Their reputation over the last several seasons is it's one of the best offenses, one of the best player position groups in the Big Ten. Uncertainty as to who's going to get the outs on the mound. They've had these older guys step up and do it, but I really assume they were hoping one of these guys would make it to campus because Indiana was like they're 2nd in OPS in the Big Ten. They were 10th in ERA, and that's their season. If in a nutshell, if you need to, that's their one-line summary of how the Indiana season went, and then missing the NCAA tournament. So they did get one of their big guys to campus, Blaine Metz. He's a 6'3" right-hander who's played in some of those high-profile events. He was up into the mid-90s. Don't know a ton about him other than this is a team that needs pitching, and I'm sure he'll get his opportunities because Coach Mercer isn't shy about throwing freshmen out there.
Yeah, losing Fisher no doubt hurts. I'm pretty sure that's an arm they thought they'd get to campus. So, all right, moving right along. We're going to talk about some of the highest drafted players that we like with Midwest ties, the non-Big Ten division of our conversation here, Burke. Gavin Keelan, 13th overall pick with the San Francisco Giants. Was a native of Wisconsin, started his career in Louisville, ended up at Tennessee. Went to Tennessee looking to make a College World Series, and it turns out his old team is the one that made it, Louisville. So tough blow there, but obviously he's going to have a big payday ahead of him, and he's got brighter days too with in the Giants system. Brendan Summerhill, 42nd pick, Tampa Bay Rays. He's an Illinois native. Saw him and Keelan quite a bit on the high school circuit back when they were both playing in that. Keelan played on the same travel team with guys like Mitch Voit, Will Vierling, with the hitters program here in southeastern Wisconsin. So they've developed quite a few guys over the years, including guys like Jared Kelnick and Alex Benelis, if you remember him with Louisville. And so big program there. Nice to see those guys that I'm very familiar with get drafted. Mitch Voit, of course, Jaden Fauske, some of the other highest Midwest taken player. But Burke, similar to before, why don't you tell me about some guys? I think you're going to tell me about 3 guys that you like from the Midwest, from non-Big Ten schools that were taken in this year's draft.
Yeah, I'm going to start with Boston Smith, the Wright State catcher. He was a 6th round pick by the Nationals. tied Mason Neville for the national lead in home runs with 26. And the majority of those came in the last month of the season. I know you saw a couple of them in the Nashville Regional. He hit 19 home runs last year as a junior playing shortstop for that team. So he's an athletic catcher. He played catcher this year. Talking to scouts, the tool that stood out the most was the arm strength. And for me, it was not just the arm strength. It was also the footwork to get him in position to throw and make the pop time more impressive. So I had him like 1.95 on a pop, which is above average. He signed for a $50,000 bonus as a senior. So that to me is tremendous value. One thing I found interesting in talking to a scout is despite the 26 home runs, they put a 45 on his power, which is fringe average. But they liked his ability to get to it in games. You know, a lot of times, I'm sure you're the same way. When you talk to scouts, they're like, yeah, it's 60 power or maybe 65, but the hit tool isn't conducive for him getting there. You know, he's just showing that in batting practice. And if it doesn't show up in the games, it usually doesn't get you paid. So they liked his ability to get to it in games. So I'm happy to see him. I was happy to see him be one of those maybe the first senior in my area to come off the board. Another Midwest guy. He was one of the more highly touted prep pitchers in my area. He's from Michigan. He was a Michigan State commit. It's Luke LaCourse. He was a 6th rounder. The Angels picked him. He can really spin a slider. That's his calling card. His spin rate at the PBR Super 60 Super 60 was like 3,500 on the slider, which is higher than I've seen. Like I think Chase Meyer is the highest that I've seen, and it's like 3,300 is what I got him up to. 3,500 is really, you know, top of the scale. The catch is his velo was down this spring. That's not that uncommon. When guys go in the summer showcase circuit, they're going around Florida, California, and they're scraping mid 90s, or sitting in low 90s. They get in the cold. Patrick and I have talked about how cold it is, and they're throwing upper 80s, topping out at 91. It sounds like that's what Luke was doing. So scouts that I talked to were hit or miss on the velocity. They would have liked to seen a little more, but when you can spit at 3,500 RPMs, that's going to grab the attention of at least a couple teams. And the Angels picked him in the 6th round. So he signed for $500,000, which was over $100,000 over slots. So it's a tough break for Michigan State, who thought they had a chance to get him to campus, but from what I know about him, he did want to sign. So if this is what the kid wants, then I'm happy for him. The third, and this is, I'm trying to give you, trying to diversify my picks, Patrick, because I gave you a D1 player from the Horizon League. I sent you a high school arm, and then now I'm going to give you a D2 arm that we may have talked about him on this podcast, but I saw him. His name's Hunter Allen. He's from Ashland, which is about an hour north of Columbus, where I live. The Orioles picked him in the 7th round, 214th overall. I got a chance to see him, and he did sign already. He signed an underslot deal, for $150,000, and the slot was $272,000. He's a senior, so that makes sense. He was but he's younger for the class. He's not yet 21. There's a lot to like. He's a big kid. It's a high spin fastball up to 2,700 RPMs. That means it's a lot of rotation in the zone. I'm a broken record. I like guys who can miss bats with their fastball. If you can spin your fastball a lot, there's more likely you're going to miss bats in the zone, and that's what I like. He has, the command was shaky, and I think that's why people are saying he's probably going to go to the bullpen, which I wouldn't be shocked. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he makes it to the majors in a few years in that bullpen role, and that's terrific value in the 7th round. Like I said, he was up to 98 with the fastball, hard downer mid 80s curveball, and then a swing and miss changeup with late fade that kind of drops off the table. So I'm a fan, and I'm rooting for him.
That's great stuff. I remember talking about Allen.
Yeah.
I remember you sharing video, and I remember even talking about whether, you were trying to find the right time to go see him throw, and like your impressions of him were pretty impressive. Just how hard he threw. I remember being just a big bodied right-hander. So
yeah I like getting I love when I'm, there's a lot of people that cover this sport on social media, and the sport is
Right.
better for it. The sport's better for it. I love it. But I love when a guy gets picked and there's nothing out there, and only we're one of only a few people who have seen, and then we get a chance to kind of show people, show Orioles fans like, hey, I don't know anything about this guy. I want to see more video. Well, thankfully I got like 3 camera shoot of 3 different angles of him, and I can provide that, and I'm happy to do it.
Yep, no doubt. I know exactly what you mean. All right, my guys, similar diversity, not quite as diverse as yours. I'm going to start with Rory Fox. I got all my guys are Wisconsin guys, so I got to give my Wisconsin guys some cred here. Rory Fox, right-handed pitcher, Notre Dame, 6th-round pick of the New York Yankees. Just like he went to Notre Dame. They thought he'd be a two-way guy. He in the state of Wisconsin here when he was coming out of high school. What would that have been 3 years ago? Kind of known more for being a shortstop that also threw. He kind of flipped that view of him his last year or two in college. He could get his fastball up to the mid 90s, sat comfortably 92 to 94. Really good breaking ball. His brother was, I forget his first name, the other, like Luke Fox, with the left-hander that pitched at Duke. Do you remember him, Burke?
That sounds familiar, yes.
Like 2 or 3 years ago. But anyway, talented family, obviously, when it comes to baseball. I was just happy to see him drafted in the 6th round, begin his career with the Yankees. My second guy is Peter Cuso, a prep arm who's already signed for close to $900,000. 4th-round pick of the Mets. The Mets, again, showing up once again in the Midwest and taking guys we like. He was a Louisville commit. A lot of guys that play in the state of Wisconsin do end up committing to Louisville, just like the Chicago area. Their recruiting coordinator, Eric Snyder, always hits the upper Midwest very hard. Anyway, Cuso went to Arrowhead High School, which happens to be the high school that I graduated from. So I want to give a tip of the cap to Cuso for being selected.
And you guys are co-members of that high school's Hall of Fame, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's listed alphabetically. So there's Patrick Ebert and then there's Peter Cuso. So yes.
There you
of
go.
Course. I don't the thing, Burke, with that is like I have no idea which sport I qualify for. It might be hacky sack. I'm not sure. And then Will Veerling, I mentioned him before, 11th round pick of the Phillies. He was the Murray State's catcher this past year, had a lot of power, brought a lot of stability to the middle of that lineup. I talked to some people towards the end of the year about Murray State, and it's just like that, they had some good arms, but it was the lineup that really beat people down. And Veerling was a big part of that. I mentioned before how he played with guys like Gavin Keelan and Mitch Voit back in high school on the travel team. Big left-handed slugger. Happy to see him picked. I want to throw a shout out here to another Notre Dame player, Estevan Moreno, who's not from Wisconsin, but he is a Chicago area player that played at Notre Dame. He was a 20th round selection of the Seattle Mariners. I think Moreno, flat out, he did not have a good year. He did not have the kind of year that he needed to be drafted where his talent should get him drafted. A lot of power, good arm, really good defender at shortstop. It's his most natural position. Last year, he played second base. His freshman year, he played some third base. But really, he stands out at shortstop. And I think when you see his body type, because he's a bigger, stronger physical athlete, you think he's going to end up at one of the other positions. But he just makes shortstop look so good. And then when he connects with a baseball the way that he's capable of, he can send the ball a really long way. For what we do in covering college baseball, I hope he comes back, but I'll certainly be happy for him if he ends up signing with the Mariners.
A quick note: I see that Rory Fox already signed. He signed for $411,000. The slot was $319,000, so above slot deal for him, which is good to see.
That is one thing that Notre Dame has going for it. It's something I talked with each of their current coach, Coach Stifler, and Coach Jarrett before him. Like when they know how to work those things at colleges, Notre Dame being a very high academic institution, you have to pay for that one way, shape, or another, and not just always the payer that plays for that, right, or pays for that. The team's got to buy you out. So even if you are a junior and it feels like you have no leverage, if you're talking about going back to your senior year and getting a degree from Notre Dame, that's something I know all of us would find pretty powerful. So
our mutual friend Nick Falaris has a degree from Notre Dame, and he always reminds me of the prestige that holds over mine from Ohio State. But when Ohio State beat his Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the college football national championship, he was somehow radio silent after that. So was Runes. I tried to get Runes to bet on that, and he was like, nah. So some Notre Dame fans and alumni they are.
So I went to UW Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. And then, like, for a while there, they'd call me to ask give money, and my standard answer when I had no money to give was, you bring back you start a football team, and I'll give you some of my money. So they still don't have a football team, and I probably should start contributing since that's the right thing to do, but I haven't. So sorry, EWM. But anyway, I bring that up because I have no horse in this race. So, like, if you and Nick want to rip on my lack of a football team, then have at it.
If the Panthers did have a football team and they played Ohio State in the national championship game, I know you would have the stones to bet with me. So
that's very true. If that happened and they were playing national championship game, we'd be watching it together in person, I'm sure. So
yes, we would.
All right, Burke, I think that's good for today. Anything else you want to add about wrapping up this year's draft?
No, I think we covered it all, Patrick. We did an excellent job. I'm going to give us a 60 on this.
Wow, that's lofty. I kept tripping over my own lips today, so I'm gonna give myself a 40. I need to go back to dictation, like, and get stronger at that. I haven't been doing the necessary exercises to stay on top of my podcasting game, so I can be better. And
I gave you a 40 as well, but I gave myself an 80, so that averages up to a 60.
There you go. Good. Well done. Well done. Even in the presence of a high school Hall of Famer. Nicely done. Well, all right, Burke, that's all we got today. Thanks as always for your insights. Always had a lot of fun. I'm going to continue to cover the Northwoods League this summer. We're going to try to get back together and do this again. Maybe talk a little bit about summer observations. I've been sharing my stuff on the site. I've been sharing my stuff on X. If you want to see any of my videos or any other observations, please go check that out. But otherwise, for this time being, I want to thank all of our viewers for watching and getting this far. As we said at the beginning, he's Burke Granger. I'm Patrick Ebert. This is Big Baseball and Beyond, a D1 Baseball podcast brought to you by Academy Sports. Thanks. See you next time.